Hi, welcome back to Matthew's Ballistics. This is Grant. I haven't done a video in a few weeks because it's been hunting season and we've been, running around for the holidays. Everything's been busy. And where I test most of my ammunition, my rounds at, and where I shoot at is also where I hunt at. So during the hunting season, I kind of quit doing that and I more or less try to focus on just reloading, but, getting caught up in everything. I ended up, from buying another vehicle and dealing with all that, and then all the holiday stuff, buying gifts for people, and then being limited on what you can do and where you can go because of the COVID. Everything's just kind of caught up, and I apologize. I intended to have a new video out before now, but as of right now, I'm actually set up to, and I've got the time to actually do another video, so as we jump into this, reloading in general. A couple of years ago, well, even say last year, 2019, everything was awesome. You could go to a store and you could buy a 50 round box of 9mm, for instance, and you might pay somewhere between $8 and $10 for it, depending on the store you go to. It's readily available. You could buy it. It was easy. It was almost cheaper to buy it than it was to reload it. So nobody, not a whole lot of people really messed with reloading 9mm for that reason, because the process of reloading ammunition is time consuming and it requires lots of patience and it requires, a dedication and you have to be really focused at what you're doing, or you can make mistakes that could cost you a lot. So, a year ago, you could go and you could buy the ammunition cheap. It was easy. It was almost cheaper than reloading it when you looked at how much time you have to put into reloading. Though a year ago you could buy enough material to reload, and you could reload 9mm for a round. I want to say you could do it for around 10 cents a round. By the time you bought the bullet, you bought the powder, if you buy the casings. Now if you're reloading casings that you've already paid for once, they're basically free because you've already shot them and collected them, and all you gotta do is process it. But once you buy it, you gotta buy the primers, powder, cases, the bullets, and then you gotta buy your reloading equipment. You gotta buy your dies, you gotta buy your press. So once you factor in that it costs you $100 for a real decent set of dies and $100 for a real decent, even a single stage press, you got to add that into your cost of remanufacturing. So unless you're going to plan on doing reloading, say 4,000 or 5,000 rounds or plus, you're basically not going to make your money back until that point. Fast forward till today, 2020. I was at a gun show yesterday, and I was just looking around. Of course, the prices on everything is really high. One of the local stores in town has 9mm you can buy almost every day of the week. They've been keeping it in stock. Of course, they limit you to one box, like almost everybody else. But they've been selling it for, it's steadily gone up. A couple months back, it was $18.99 a box, and now this past week I went and bought a box, and it was I think $22.99, which is incredibly expensive for 9mm. But now, going to the gun show yesterday, I was looking, and at the gun show everybody's like super gouging on prices. You could not find a 50 round box of 9mm for $22. It just wasn't going to happen. I believe the cheapest box of 9mm that I found at the gun show was $25, which there are some stores out there selling it at that, but my deal is my local store, gun store that I go to, was selling it for $22.99, and I can get it there like almost any day of the week. At that price, it wasn't worth it to me to go to the gun show and pay $3 more a box to get it. So I looked around more for reloading supplies because they're really, really hard to find, especially primers. And I lucked out at the gun show. I mean, I guess if you could call it lucked out, because I run upon a case of 1,000 small pistol primers, which I have not seen in the past 3 months. You just can't buy them. The last primers I bought off of Gunbroker, and I bid on them, and I bought 5,000, a whole case of 5,000 small rifle primers, and they ended up running me, all said and done, by the time they were shipped to the house, they ran me 12.5 cents a piece. A year before that, in 2019, you could have bought them at any store that sold reloading supplies. You could have went in there and bought them for around 4.5 cents a piece. So I thought, I was getting, that was bad then. Now, fast forward a few months later to December, or getting close to Christmas time, those same small rifle primers are going for unreal amounts. They're going for as high as 30 cents a piece. And it's just crazy to even think about that. So you're in a situation where, man, it's getting to the point where reloading ammunition is going to cost you more than just buying whatever you can get. So, unless of course you do what I do and actually cast your own rounds, and that's the only money saving part of it. If you've got the material and the equipment to cast your own bullets, that ends up saving you 20 cents a bullet, give or take, because buying bullets is kind of expensive. So I was at the gun show yesterday, and I run across that one case of 1,000 small pistol primers, and I asked the lady that was selling them if I could open them. She said yes. Opened them up, took a couple of little 100-round flats out and opened them and looked at them. They're kind of dingy, they look kind of old. She assured me that the guy that was selling them was a reloader and that he kept them climate controlled, blah, blah, blah. Anything to make a sale, basically. So I was in this area in my mind of, do I buy them or do I not buy them? I haven't seen them in 3 months. Yeah, and she wants $220 for a case of 1,000 pistol primers of unknown age, unknown of how they were actually stored, like all these unknown variables that could run you off of making a purchase. Of course, they're 22 cents a piece at $220 for 1,000. So I decided to roll the dice. I bought them. Yesterday I actually went out and I primed a couple of these 9mm cases with them. I didn't, load powder bolts into them. I just primed them, hand fed them in the chamber of the gun, went outside and popped them off just to see if the primers would even ignite, and they did. They worked fine. So great. That was a good purchase. I was pretty relieved that I didn't just waste $220. So now I've got a 22-cent primer. These cases are used, they're once fired, they're picked up off a gun range, so they're free. So got 22 cents invested. I actually got a pretty decent deal on some Hoshin tight grip powder, which is good to load 9mm and 45 auto with. I paid $20 for a pound of it. And if you do the math, you can get around 1,400 9mm rounds out of a pound of powder. Because they only use, I think, 4.8 grains of powder is what it calls for, and there's 7,000 grains in a pound. So if you do the math, you get, you get them for, you can do 1,458 rounds out of a pound of powder, and you end up paying, I think just a couple cents, like 2 or 3 cents a round out of it. I think that's what that ends up being, maybe 4 cents a round. So you get like 26 cents a round, and then your bullets come into play, which I cast my own bullets out of lead, and these are ones that I've recently cast. They're 125 grain, just round nose lead cast bullets. They haven't been finished processing, and that's another thing. Once you cast your own bullets, you have to actually run them through a sizing die, which you can buy a sizing die kit. And it's time consuming because once you cast them, these are freshly cast. They haven't been lubed, they haven't been resized, so you've got to lubricate them. And using liquid Alox like I do, you basically put them in a jar and pour the liquid Alox in there, shake them up until they get all coated nice, and then you got to roll them out on a cookie sheet and let them sit for 24 hours before you can even resize them. And then you got to go through and resize each one of them, pressing them through that die. So if you're doing 1,000 rounds, that's 1,000 strokes on that die. You've got to sit there and like set them, run them through once they're done, and then collect them and keep them separate from all the other ones, because you don't want to end up going back through and doing another one twice or something. You know, so you end up with all this equipment. You end up, by the time you want to get ready to set up to load one caliber, you've got, especially basic reloading like me, I'm using a hand press. I'm not even using one that clamps on the table like a single stage press. I'm using a basic hand loading press, which is what you would use out in the field if you had to reload ammunition. And so basically, by the time you get ready to load one caliber, if it's 9mm, just in equipment, you're going to have probably $300 in it. I would say that's being modest. You're going to have $300 in equipment. So how long does it take you to reload the ammunition, and the price difference between what you can reload it for in material versus what you can buy it for before you actually get your $300 back? That's one of the things about reloading. A lot of people that don't really know anything about reloading and think they're going to get into it, especially in today's time when everything's all up in the air and everything's just way overpriced, and they're like, well, I can start reloading and I'll save half the money. You really don't. The only way that you actually save money reloading is if you've had equipment for years. Like me, I've been reloading for like 5 years, so today's prices for primers, material, bullets, when I cast my own bullets, and buying gunpowder, I will end up having 30 cents a piece in each round of 9mm, which is insane. You used to could buy 9mm for friggin' 15 cents a piece, and right now it's going for 65, 75 cents a piece. And like at the gun show yesterday, and people were buying it, and it's insane. Of course, by the time and that's just in materials, 30 cents a piece is what I reload it for. Now when you start factoring in all the, my equipment and stuff, that drops that price down, or brings that price up. I'm probably not too far off what it's selling for, and the only way that it would really pay off is if I had an opportunity to do more than 1,000 rounds of it. So this is the reality of reloading today in 2020, leading into 2021, and I don't know if it's ever going to get back to normal. I've talked to a lot of other fellow reloaders and other people that have FFL07s that manufacture and sell ammunition on a small scale, because I originally thought that I was going to get into that. But after you pay your $150 a year, fee or whatever to keep your license, basically the ATF, anything you sell, they take 30% of your profits away from you. They tax you almost 30%. So it is not economical to reload and make money doing it. If you think that you're going to go out there today and you're going to buy the equipment and the material and you're going to start reloading and selling your own ammunition because ammunition is so high right now, you're not going to make money. You're going to realize you're losing money just fast. And I do not recommend anybody do it for that purpose. If you are interested in reloading and want to learn more about it and the process of it, I basically will put the information out there for free. There's a whole science to it, and there is a danger to it, especially loading automatics. Semi-automatic pistols that shoot 9mm, 45 auto, etc. They are very finicky with rounds, and especially depending on what type of gun, what brand you shoot. Because some of them have really, really tight tolerances in the chambers, and some of them are a little more loose and will shoot just about anything. So you gotta load your ammunition, and getting it to be reliable in a semi-automatic is a hurdle. Is figuring out exactly how much crimp to put on the round, and how much powder, and how deep to set the bullet, or how long to let it hang out of the case, to where it feeds reliably every single time in your firearm, it takes a while. And then to try to make it to where it feeds reliably in 6 or 7 different firearms, 6 or 7 different brands is, you can imagine how hard that is to do, is to make one bullet that can do that. Because every gun manufacturer is different. Their tolerances are all different. It's a big deal. And I think people just think that this hobby, because that's basically all it is, they think this hobby is just an easy thing to do that you can learn how to do. I spent hours in classes that I paid for to learn the things that I know how to do. And I'm still learning. I actually went and talked to my old instructor a while back about loading 6.5 Creedmoor. Actually, not a while back, it was this past week. Because we're talking about loading 6.5 Creedmoor to extend the range out, to shoot further way on out. And there are things that you can do instead of just loading it to a community standard or like a book standard. There are ways to load, and like your overall lengths change. And basically you tailor the ammunition to your gun. It's not going to shoot in somebody else's gun. It's going to be, tailored to your rifle, your rifle's chamber and the way it shoots. And you can take that same ammunition, stick it in somebody else's rifle, and it won't even chamber. And this is, but that's what you do when you're trying to make, shots further out than you want to go walk. And you want to find out if you even hit the target or not. But, there is a lot of reloading that I've just scraped the tip of the iceberg, just to, do it as a hobby. Obviously, anything going into a revolver is easier than an automatic. I started out reloading for a 10mm automatic because, one, ammunition for that has always been kind of expensive. It takes more than twice the amount of powder that it takes for a 9mm to load it. It's 10 times as powerful, well, not really, but it's about, I'd say it's at least 3.5 times as powerful as 9mm. And it's a fantastic round, very flat shooting, it's on par with a .357 Magnum, and it basically have identical ballistics. You can actually load the 10mm much hotter, much faster than you can a .357. And of course, when I'm shooting my .454, it's got such a large cylinder on it that if the bullets aren't seated to the same depth, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect it all that much. They're going to shoot out of it. I don't have to worry about the recoil being different one round to the next to be able to ratchet the slide back to feed the next round because it's in a revolver. The only thing I got to worry about with a handgun that produces so much recoil is that the next bullets in the chamber don't jump out of the case, on the recoil, what they call a crimp jump. So I have to worry about crimping on those rounds, but that's about it. Anyways, I'm going to lubricate some of these up and let them set out overnight, spread them out, and then I'll be, I guess, priming these cases. I've got a whole bunch more of 9mm cases, probably another 2,500 or so that I can tumble and process and resize, but that's where I'm at right now. I've only got 1,000 primers that I can actually use. And that was my whole deal yesterday at the gun show was, yeah, they're stupid expensive, they're way overpriced, but you can't get them. There's only 3 manufacturers that make primers for firearms in the U.S., and they are running day and night, and they cannot keep it with demand, and that's where we're at today. So if you're thinking you're going to go out there and reload, yeah, you can get you can get powder, and you can get cases, and you can get bullets, or you can cast your own bullets, but you can't get primers. You just can't do it. Not at a reasonable price. So it comes down to, if you are a reloader and you enjoy reloading and you enjoy shooting your own rounds at the range at target shooting like I do, it comes down to a point of you either have them or you don't. So you either spend that overpriced amount of money or you don't, and you just don't do your hobby, don't enjoy your hobby, you find something else to do. And that really sucks. But that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today, and I know I'm kind of ranting and just going on and on over the same stuff, but for the people out there that think that they're going to get into this hobby and make money doing it or save money doing it, the reality is you're not. You're better off just buying store-bought ammunition. The only reason why I do this hobby is because I load a couple different calibers that you cannot buy in a store. Right now, 454 Gasul ammunition, can't buy it. I haven't seen any in a store in 6 months. And if you try to buy it online, you're paying $2 or $2.25 or $2.50. Even if you're buying hardcore custom ammunition like Underwood or Buffalo Bore or something, you're talking almost $4 a round. Some of them rounds are $3.75 or $3.85 a round, and I mean, you think about that. Every time you pull a trigger, you got 6 rounds in the barrel. Like, you empty that 6-round cylinder, you're talking $24-25 in ammunition. So that's the reason why I reload for it, and I still can only reload for about $1.25 a round on material costs and everything, not including my dies and my press and my resizing equipment and my bullet molds. It's kind of a crazy world we're living in, so it comes down to, as far as reloading, you either have the material to do it or you don't. Price is no longer a factor. It shouldn't be a thought in your head like, well, that's just way too much money, I'm not going to buy it. If you find primers, you should just buy them. I don't care how much they cost, because you're either going to have them or you're not. And they're very few and very far to come to, in between to find them. So that's just what I wanted to go over with and want to talk about. I'm going to get into reloading these. Probably have some finished by tomorrow. This is like 369 cases of 9mm. And I've also got another video coming up I'm wanting to do. I've got a bunch of leftover pumpkins from Halloween and Thanksgiving and all that. And of course, who doesn't want to see me shoot my 454 at some pumpkins? It's, it has no choice but to be pretty awesome, I'm sure. So for now, that's going to be it. This has been Matthews Ballistics. I hope you enjoy my ranting today, the good and the bad and the ugly of reloading. If you got any questions or comments or anything that you want to see me do, or if there's any information you want me to cover in one of my future videos, drop a comment down below and I'll be glad to. I'll try to reply to it as soon as I can. Anyways, I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you next time.